Unsung Murder Ballads discusses topics of a graphic nature and in graphic detail, and may not be suitable for children under 13. Listener discretion is advised.
All right, welcome back to Unsung Murder Ballads. I am Janus Dead.
I'm Jameson Dead.
And I'm Joyous Dead.
And tonight we are joined by my friend Max. Max and I used to work together. Say hello, Max.
Hello.
So Max is thinking of starting their own podcast. So what are you thinking about for a podcast?
It was going to be me and my best friend kind of covering a little bit of everything, kind of like conspiracy theories we have, or like theories about games and just cryptics, just anything we really find interesting, because we end up talking all the time when we play games together. So we're like, why don't we just start a podcast, you know?
Why not? I mean, that's what we did. And mostly because I really enjoy talking about death. It's sad. Most people...
we're those cryptic motherfuckers that, you shouldn't associate, but you somehow associate with.
But I think gets sucked into it.
Right? I think Max meant cryptids though, right?
Yeah, but the cryptics work too. Both work.
So, a cryptid is like the mythological creatures, like sightings of things. Mm-hmm. When I've talked about starting a potential second podcast, one of the cryptids that really gets my attention are the black-eyed children. And
I have not heard about those.
They are so creepy. You should look up.
Oh, they are.
I'm gonna write that down real quick.
Yes. Or the black-eyed kids. There's another reference. But so basically, if you have creepy-looking children come to your door asking to use your phone, don't let them in. That's the moral of the story. Bad things happen.
If anyone comes knocking, I'm running the other way.
I know most of us just
answer my door. No way.
Yeah, I was gonna say most of us don't answer our doors anymore. You're right.
Well, I moved in with my girlfriend and we live on the 3rd floor. So if somebody's knocking at our door, that's a little...
Oh, they've already gotten through the first barrier? Yeah, I can see that.
Yes.
That'd be like if someone started knocking on my bedroom door. I'd be like, we have a problem here.
Yeah.
But at least they're knocking, though.
I guess, yeah some
that's
boundary,
a start.
Right?
Tonight, we are going to be discussing the case of Claudia Brenner and Rebecca Wight. And Wight is spelled W-I-G-H-T, not white like the color, just for any listener out there. Because when I first started researching this, I was looking in all the wrong places. It's a lot of Rebecca Whites named after the color, but this particular one was not spelled that way.
I was going to say, I can only imagine what you found.
Yeah, it's it was just a lot of random people. And it actually wasn't until I decided to search for Claudia Brenner that I realized that I was spelling Rebecca's name wrong. So
okay, all right.
So our story starts off in the year 1985. Claudia and Rebecca met at a committee meeting for Women's Week on the 6th floor of the Newman Library at Virginia Tech in 1985. Now, Rebecca, she grew up in a family that traveled a lot. Her father basically served in foreign services, so they were traveling quite a bit throughout her childhood. She was half Puerto Rican and half Iranian. And she grew up
lethal combination.
Not lethal.
I was just thinking that.
I was thinking she must have I've seen a photo of her, so I know what she looks like, but it's a really unique kind of exotic look. So I don't know. I don't think it was bad necessarily.
I should refrain from my comment. I guess my comment came from attitude, I guess.
Okay.
I was thinking the same thing.
Okay.
I thought you were saying like lethally attractive, because that's the vibe I got.
All right.
Okay. All right.
So Joyous Dead, she's got the better way of thinking.
It's Pride Month, and I'm only thinking about being gay.
That's right.
There you go.
And Pride Month, although by the time this airs, it will no longer be Pride Month, but it's okay to celebrate the LGBTQ plus community, even when it's not Pride Month. So
of course,
keep that in mind.
Amen.
Hell yeah.
Okay, so Rebecca was the oldest of 3 girls, and throughout her life, she lived in Thailand, Brazil, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Korea.
Wow, what a variety.
Right? I mean, again, her father traveled quite a bit. So, and you can almost see like Pakistan, Afghanistan, Korea, Thailand, like those 2 pairings, you can sort of see they're probably just part of the same basic job, I would assume. Brazil's sort of the offshoot there, but I don't know. Either way, it sounds like a fun childhood to me. So Rebecca, she was a graduate in 1985, and Claudia was in her first year of grad school there. Virginia Tech was pretty conservative, as one would imagine it being in Virginia in 1985. This particular group met to discuss feminism and what that entailed in, at the time, the modern day 1985. So Claudia had recently graduated from Cornell University and was looking for allies and friends. She had left the more comfortable gay scene in Ithaca, New York behind to continue her education at Virginia Tech. When the two first met, Claudia found Rebecca beautiful, but thought they would only ever be close friends. Rebecca lived with her boyfriend at the time and seemed both straight and committed. So Claudia didn't really, I mean, I'm sure you ladies know how that is. Like you probably, you look at her and you're like, she's hot, but I probably don't have a shot. And I think that's what Claudia was thinking.
Like my biggest fear whenever I have in the past try to hit on somebody, I was like, ooh, what do I do? What if they're committed? They seem happy. I should probably just not say anything.
And especially if you can't tell if they're gay or not.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
that's why I live in Boston, because everyone's gay.
Everyone's a little bit gay.
Fair enough. But this is also 1985 and in Virginia.
Oh, yes. Very different vibe. Entirely.
Yes. Although, to be fair, my thing is I always ask a girl what her boyfriend's name is. This way, and if they look at me and they're like, why? I'm like, well, you look familiar. I think I might know your boyfriend. And this does a number of things all at once. I get to find out if boyfriend is completely off the mark. I get to find out if they're still on the market, because if they say, oh, my boyfriend's name is Tim or Todd or whatever, or they say my girlfriend's name is Rebecca, whatever it might be, then I have an answer. But if they're like, well, I don't have a boyfriend, then I'm like, all right, maybe you just have that face. But then I've already broken the ice and I can talk to them. So that's my advice, Max. If you're looking for a good way to hit on someone, that's usually a good idea.
You're giving away your game on this podcast right now.
Everybody's going to be like, quick, write it down.
Right? Why not? I mean, the whole world needs something. Okay, we digress. Let's get back into this. So for the next 2 years, their friendship stays exactly that. It's friendly. So they would write one another, because at this point they were going to different schools. They would meet up for the occasional dinner, so forth, etc. Now, Rebecca would break up with her boyfriend when she started classes at Virginia Tech for business. The two continued to grow closer and closer, and then they both confessed to having feelings for one another. However, soon after this started, they would be separated. Claudia received a fellowship that gave her the opportunity to travel to Israel to do some research. They would write letters and communicated that way during the separation. And then when Claudia returned, she actually learned that Rebecca was seeing a guy and not telling her.
Oh.
However,
how long was she away for? Oh, sorry.
A handful of months, not very long.
Okay.
Wow.
So
that sucks.
It does. However, they would overcome this, and it would strengthen their relationship in the end. So Rebecca graduates from Virginia Tech, and she compromises with Claudia, and they agree to stay close for her doctorate program. So she decided, instead of traveling further away, that she would go to Penn State. So you have one at Virginia Tech, you have one at Penn State. Now, to kind of give you an idea of how close this is, it's a 6-hour drive from one to the other. So they're not that far away, especially in the 80s. I mean, not that it's not any closer today, but I mean, if you're going to do long-term relationships, 6 hours isn't really that long. Now, to overcome this distance, they started to plan kind of getaways together, and they would sometimes meet up at state parks in Virginia and Pennsylvania. Now, Rebecca, she's an experienced outdoorsman, and she felt that camping at state parks felt too much like camping in a parking lot. Now, I don't know if you guys have ever stayed at a state park.
I have.
Or a parking lot, no.
I went camping once.
Yeah, I was going to say that camping, I guess for someone who really enjoys the outdoors, having too many other people around you camping feels like you're a little too close to people. So I can sort of see this. Now, Rebecca had been interested in hiking some of the Appalachian Trail, and Claudia agreed that they should do that. Now, this is a moment where I have to explain to our listeners who are in other countries what the Appalachian Trail actually is. Now, the Appalachian Trail is a footpath that basically it's wooded areas, it's wild, it has a lot of cultural resonance for the lands throughout the Appalachian Mountains. This trail is 2,190 miles long, which is basically 3,524 kilometers.
Did you just have that conversion on hand, or you just like?
No, I had it written out. I researched that.
All right. I was going to be like, geez, I didn't know you were right on the dot there. Jeez.
No, I looked it up knowing that a lot of our listeners are now in other countries. I've decided to have the metric system nearby.
All right. Fair enough.
Right.
That's smart.
So
yeah, it's very long. It usually takes people a good 3-4 months to do the whole thing.
It's funny. I'm going to get to that in a second.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. So
Spoiling.
the trail was conceived in 1921. It was built by private citizens and it was completed in 1937. Today, the trail is managed by various National Park Services, U.S. Forest Services, state agencies, and volunteers. It begins in Cathodin, Maine, and ends in Springer Mountain, Georgia. It usually takes between 5 and 7 months to walk the entire trail, which people have done. 3 million people walk parts of it every year, and roughly 3,000 people a year walk the entire thing.
Damn.
That's crazy to me.
I know a couple people who have done it. It's crazy.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, people from college. I have a friend who, because usually you start in the springtime at the bottom of the trail, so in Georgia, so it's not that hot. The way I understand it, so you start, so it's you're getting the least hot or the hottest place at the least hot time of year, and then you go all the way up. But I have a friend who did it, started in Maine in the middle of the winter and southbound. It was crazy.
Wow. That person really likes to torture themselves.
Yeah, he does. He's a real badass though.
Wow. Holy crap.
Yeah.
I'm not a big camper because I served in the military and I promised myself I'd never sleep on the ground again. But
valid.
That's a good promise.
Yeah, but starting in the winter in Maine is not my idea of a good time.
No, mine either. But some people love a challenge. I love my house that I paid rent for, and I love sleeping here.
True, very true.
Just the fact that he started in the winter kind of reminds me a little bit of how people try to do Mount Everest.
Oh,
how,
God.
Windy. Not how windy, how snowy and dangerous that is. How not a lot of people make it.
Right. But think about it, though. The people that do make it, they have some serious bragging rights right there.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
In mid-May of 1988, Rebecca and Claudia meet in Pennsylvania at a campground they had stayed at before. But this time, they would actually be going up the Appalachian Trail. So they started on a Thursday, and the plan was they were going to hike the trail for 2 days. They were going to leave that Saturday to go to Rebecca's sister's birthday party in Washington, D.C. when they were done. Now, they parked their cars on a road that had a very unfortunate and kind of foreshadowing name. The name of the road was Dead Woman's Hollow.
Oh, my God.
But they didn't know the name of the road at the time. So, yeah.
Oh, my God.
Now, the road had gotten that name in 1917 because a woman was bitten by a rattlesnake and died there. So, yeah, weird, right? I don't know why you would name a road that, but hey.
What an ominous thing to do.
So Rebecca and Claudia were excited to see each other again, but they also knew that they had to keep their affection for one another on the DL because it is the late 80s. Even though it was a little better than it had been in decades before, being openly gay could invite a lot of hostility.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly think even in that kind of redneck area in the Appalachian Trail, it's probably not safe today either.
Oh, absolutely not.
I was going to say you guys would know better than I would. So
I just know to stay away from the South. That's all I know.
Well, it depends on where you are. I have a lot of gay friends who live in the big cities in the South, and they're pretty much good there. It's when you get out the further away from the cities is really where you got to worry about it.
Yeah.
So it's because of this need for privacy that they chose to go up the mountain and hike and camp. So on Thursday night, May 12th, they set up camp at the Birch Run shelter. And when they arrived, it was empty. Now, these type of places have what's called lean-tos. They're like little shelters that have basically one side that's open, a slanted roof, and so forth. And there's a lot of bunks that you can stay in. But they opted to stay in tents on the outskirts of that area for added privacy, which makes sense. They weren't too far from the shelter. It was still within sight if they needed it, but far enough. They settled in and they spent the night together. They woke up the morning of Friday the 13th. Again, another
ominous sign there. Come on now. And they're in the woods. Where's Jason? Come on.
Well, you're about to meet him.
Oh,
if the gods could throw any more aggressive signs, oh my God.
Right? It's like that scene in what's that Jim Carrey one where he gets the power of God, Bruce Almighty.
Bruce Almighty.
Bruce Almighty.
And he says, "Show me a sign," and the truck pulls in with all the signs that say stop. Yeah. So they woke up on the morning of Friday the 13th, and they assumed that they still had the campground completely to themselves. Claudia and Rebecca were relaxing in the nude after washing up in a nearby stream. They started to make breakfast, boil water for coffee, so forth. Rebecca then leaves their site to go up to the outhouse wearing nothing but a pair of sneakers. After utilizing the outhouse, Rebecca goes to the lean-to shelter looking for a guest book to sign. Now, for anyone who hasn't ever done this or hasn't spoken to someone who does this, when hikers are moving along the trail, at every one of these little stops, there's a guest book to sign, and it basically marks your travel, and you can kind of show, how far you've traveled, etc. So that's what she was going to do. But instead of finding a guest book, she finds a man inside the shelter.
Oof.
He's wearing sweats, and she notices that he has an erection.
That's uncomfortable.
So she's shocked. She's naked. She's quite embarrassed, and she apologizes to him. The guy tells her that he arrived at 2 a.m. and he thought he was the only person at the camp. He then asks Rebecca if she has any cigarettes on her.
In what? In what?
What is she gonna pull it out
in her
of?
Sneakers?
Is she gonna pull style this and
right?
pull out her butt?
Exactly.
Pocket.
Yeah. But Rebecca quickly returns to their tent and warns Claudia that they're not alone. So the two quickly get dressed, hoping that the man has not seen too much of them, including the nature of their relationship to one another. Now, Rebecca adds that she thought the man was super creepy. So they finish their breakfast and they kind of plot the course for their day. Now, they had originally thought that they would leave their tents set up at that camp and hike for the day and come back. But after that encounter with that dude, they changed their minds, knowing that the camp is more occupied than they feel comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
So they also figure that because it's Friday, there would be more people coming and going. So, hey, best to take it all with them. So after packing up their things, they begin down the trail, passing the guy, and being friendly, they say, see you later. And he returns the exchange. They hike for a bit, and they're looking for a place that's called Rocky Knob Loop. And after 30...
just the name was weird.
Yeah, Rocky Knob Loop. I tried finding images, but other than like satellite images, there wasn't a lot to show this particular area. After 30 minutes of, walking and trying to find it using this map, they stop and, they're discussing it when they hear someone's voice say, "You're lost already?"
Oh, fucking terrifying.
They turn, and it's the same guy. And he's standing about 30 feet away from them. Now, Claudia, being the badass that she is, looks at him and says, "No, are you?"
Nice.
Yeah,
fantastic.
Yeah, fuck him, right? So they obviously find it suspicious that he seems to be going in the exact same direction as them. So they kind of linger for a bit. And that's when they notice the guy is walking with a rifle across his shoulder.
Oh, no.
No. It's not hunting season.
Oh.
For him, it is.
I was going to say that.
For him, it is. Yeah, unfortunately.
So at this point, they start taking note of the guy a bit more. Where he's tall, about 6'3", he's lanky, he has sunken eyes, and like this wild beard that he clearly hasn't been taken care of. He's, something out of a million horror movies.
Lovely.
Claudia and Rebecca turn down their path, and the man continues straight along the trail. But obviously, they keep continuously looking back over their shoulder to make sure that they're not being followed as they follow to find this loop trail. After they feel they've regained a sense of privacy, they begin to be affectionate with each other again. They begin to enjoy this rare time. Yeah, they begin to enjoy this rare time where they can be alone. And as the afternoon moves on, they find a place to camp right off the trail, but they actually opt to go a little further away from the trails just so things are a bit more secluded. They follow a path to another campsite, and it's right next to a stream. And they kind of feel fairly confident that no one's going to find them there, especially this asshole from earlier.
I don't know. I feel like he already followed them. So
yeah, and if this wasn't a true crime podcast, I would feel better about this.
I keep forgetting that's what this is. I'm like, oh, maybe this is a good outcome. I'm like, no, Max, no, it's not.
Unfortunately not.
So around 3 or 4 p.m., they did not feel very rushed at all to do anything. So they laid their waterproof tent on the ground. They didn't even begin setting it up. They basically just used it as a tarp to lay on and relax. After some time of talking and joking and just being flirtatious, Rebecca asked Claudia if they should set up the tent and allow things to get more serious. But instead, they opt to be a bit more brazen. Now, I don't know what it must feel like to hide who you really are. So I just want to take a moment. I think in that moment, they just wanted to take a moment to say, fuck it, and do what and do whatever they wanted to do.
And I can really get that. I guess just from my personal experience, I always err on the side of caution because I know how dangerous it is. And obviously they know how dangerous it is too. But my intense anxiety would be like, no, you're screwed for the day. Check out. You got to go.
Yeah. I can understand, and I can understand both sides. Like, there's that side of you that maybe you should have set up the tent first. But at the same time, fuck the world. You know, like, who the fuck are they? Do your thing.
There's always two sides of the coin. It's always those two things. Yeah. Do I just say fuck it, or do I err the side of caution?
Well, they decided to jump into some exhibitionism, and Claudia and Rebecca go for some light teasing, and that eventually leads to some oral sex while on top of their tent. Rebecca has removed Claudia's shorts, and the two are focused only on each other, not realizing that they weren't alone.
Oh.
Suddenly, Claudia Brenner feels her arm explode. At that moment, Claudia doesn't even understand what's happening. Now, for the record, I'm assuming no one here has been shot. Nope. Sometimes the bullet is so hot that you don't even register the pain right away. It literally like cauterizes the nerve endings.
The wound.
So you don't even know. You just see blood and you feel the pressure of it, but you don't feel the pain right away.
I don't know if that's better or worse.
Like the shock. I guess that makes sense.
It's not until Claudia sees the blood spilling onto the tarp that she realizes what's happening. Now, Rebecca immediately recognizes what's going on and asks Claudia where she's been shot. But a second shot runs out and it hits Claudia in the neck.
Yep.
At that moment, she sits up, realizing that the man has been watching them and is now shooting at them. As she sits up, she is hit by 2 more bullets, one in the cheek and another one in the neck.
Oh.
Rebecca screams for Claudia to get down, just as another bullet hits Claudia in the top of her head.
Oh, no.
Rebecca yells for them to run behind a tree. The two get up, and Claudia makes it behind the trees. However, in the run, Rebecca is hit twice while following behind. She is hit once low in the head towards the neck and once in the back.
Oh my God. Those are some
These
critical
people
shots.
Are durable. Holy crap.
The fact that they're still able to move at all is impressive.
Yeah. Oh, they're badasses. No doubt about that.
Well, not amazing, but like that's something else to be able to just run and go with all those wounds on you.
Oh, just wait.
Adrenaline's a hell of a drug.
Yeah.
Just wait.
Oh, great.
So a final 8th shot is heard, but it is the only bullet that misses either of the 2 women. So the 2 of them hide behind the tree for a few moments, and Claudia is beginning to panic. Rebecca calmly says that they need to find a way to stop the bleeding as soon as possible. With 5 bullet wounds and a shit ton of bravery, Claudia leaves the refuge of the tree to retrieve their packs from where they had left them.
Oh my God.
Holy shit.
She grabs shirts for the back of Rebecca's neck and a towel for her own neck. Still without pants on, Claudia goes back a second time to get sweatpants and their sneakers. She gives Rebecca her sneakers, but at this point, Rebecca is beginning to lose her vision.
Oh.
Determined that they would both make it out alive, Claudia puts Rebecca's sneakers on for her. The two manage to move only a few feet before Rebecca starts to fade and is losing the ability to keep going. Rebecca's liver had been punctured by a gunshot to her back, and this is the most severe of all the gunshot wounds. Claudia,
and you said one of the gunshot wounds was through the head?
Like on the top of her head, yeah. Like it was more of a graze than an actual.
Yeah, okay.
Claudia helps Rebecca lie down as she isn't able to walk anymore. And Claudia feels more waves of panic starting to hit her. Claudia now knows that she is going to have to leave Rebecca behind to be able to find help. But Rebecca does not want to be left alone.
Of course.
Claudia somehow manages to pull herself together and gathers her wallet, the map, and a flashlight. At this point, she looks down at Rebecca and sees that she's losing color throughout her entire body. So the sun is beginning to set, and Claudia thinks about the possibility of the night getting colder and the fact that the shirt she's wearing is covered in blood. At this point, Rebecca can't even speak, and when Claudia checks, she still has a slight pulse. Claudia covers her girlfriend with a sleeping bag, worried that she's going to become cold throughout the night. She also assumes that the man has left as there were no more gunshots, and they had been out in the open for so long. Claudia then made the hardest decision of her life and left Rebecca there to go for help.
Ugh, I guess you have to, because
yeah, what else can you?
It's not going to fix anything. She's not going to get help if you don't go. So
yeah, it's not like it happened on a street corner. Like no one's coming.
Yeah.
You know, it's the Appalachian Trail. I'm sure gunshots are heard all the time.
Fair enough. People be hunting.
So terrified, Claudia manages to make it back to the trail, but she also doesn't know if she will be headed straight towards the man. Her neck began making a gurgling sound, and her mouth continuously fills with blood, and she has to keep spitting it out of her mouth, and occasionally pieces of her shattered teeth go with it.
Oh, what a badass. What a badass.
Serious badass, but that's repulsive, but like she is a badass.
Yeah, it's both repulsive and badass. Yeah, it's crazy. So Claudia makes the decision to travel towards the roads as opposed to the campsites because she figures getting a car is going to be much faster than finding someone who hiked up here. Now, to recap this, Claudia has a bullet in her arm, 2 in her neck, 1 in the top of her head, and 1 in the face at this point.
Oh, forgot about that.
This badass somehow manages to hike to a fucking road. And unfortunately, this one's not widely used. And she realizes that she keeps having to go. She can't just stop. 3 hours later.
No.
3 fucking hours later, Claudia sees the first car.
First of all, the fact that she still survived to be able to keep going for 3 more hours.
Crazy. I mean, it's like what Joyous said, adrenaline and that will to live. There's no other explanation for it.
Well, the other explanation is she's living to save her girlfriend.
Yes, that's
living
true too.
For somebody else.
Claudia removes the towel from her neck, which started off as white and is now saturated with her own blood. And she begins waving it to get the driver's attention. The vehicle passes her by.
Are you kidding me?
No.
I get it because nobody wants to pick up a hitchhiker, but come on.
I doubt she looked like a hitchhiker at that point.
She's probably covered in blood.
I mean, I can understand.
There's a bullet hole in her face.
But I can understand not wanting to stop because you don't know what's coming up behind her. Like, what is she running from? You know what I mean? You stop that car and yeah, you'll help her, but maybe you've just put yourself and everyone else in danger. So I kind of get it. But at the same time,
it sucks.
Fuck that person.
Yeah, absolutely. Fuck that person. They could have at least called for help, even if like you don't want to deal with a hitchhiker. Maybe they're faking an injury to get sympathy, but you can call for help.
No, not in 1988. You can't.
Oh, I thought y'all had cell phones then. Really?
Nope. You had car phones and you needed a satellite connection to be able to use it. Cell phones didn't come out until the late 90s.
So the best case scenario, the car finds a place to like call
Correct.
for help.
Right.
And by that point, you don't even know.
Correct. Yeah. There were no cell phones at this point. Yeah. Like them leaving her there, basically they were like, for whatever reason, they did not want the responsibility of her. That's what it breaks down to. So Claudia is crushed, but she's determined and she continues walking. At this point, it has become completely dark and she finally sees a second vehicle. But this time she decides to stand in the middle of the road, waving her flashlight. The vehicle stops and two teenage boys unroll their window. Claudia tells them that she's been shot and that she needs help. One boy gets out and helps her into the passenger seat. They then begin speeding towards the nearest town. At this point, it's approximately 9 p.m. So it's about 4 or 5 hours after the shooting occurred.
Oh my God.
Miracle she's still alive at this point.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's tough to say how many people would have just laid down. You know what I mean? But she's determined.
She really is.
So at this point, she starts telling the kids her story, and most of the details, so that in case she isn't conscious or worse, when they arrive to wherever they're going, someone knows to look for Rebecca. The boys repeat everything back to her, assuring her that they will not forget any of the details. The nearest town is 15 minutes away. Claudia is still spitting blood, and one of the boys, in one of the sweetest yet most bizarre gestures, offers her his chewing tobacco spit cup to use for the blood.
Alrighty then.
Right? I mean,
sometimes teenage boys are either the nicest people or like devil's creation.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So these boys were named Corey and Chris. They take Claudia to the police station in a town called Shippensburg, where she demands to go out with the police to look for Rebecca instead of being treated for her own injuries.
Oh my God, badass.
Yeah. Now, the police obviously refuse, and Claudia is forced to wait 20 minutes for an ambulance to come pick her up.
Oh.
The town that it is coming from, which is called Chambersburg, was even further away from where Rebecca was. After she's evaluated at the hospital, Claudia is then flown via helicopter to a trauma center in Hershey, Pennsylvania, which is now over an hour away from where she was just brought. The search for Rebecca doesn't start until 11 p.m.
Are you kidding me? What?
Well, I mean,
what time did she get there at?
She got at the police station at sometime after 9. So
I guess that makes sense. They got to gather people and organize what they're doing.
That's fair. Have to get there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So 2 8-person search parties were assembled. Each party contained police, EMTs, firefighters, and forest rangers. So Joyous, your point is perfect. They had to get people that would know how to help.
Mm-hmm.
Claudia had circled almost exactly where on the map their camp had been, which I served in the military, and I don't think I could fucking do that.
She was dedicated.
Amazing.
Yeah, absolutely awesome. A ranger would find Rebecca as his flashlight reflected off the metal of a stovetop they had been using at their camp. It was 11:40, and Rebecca Wight had passed away not long after Claudia had left her.
Yeah, that makes sense. If she was already losing color, that's so sad.
On May 14th at 2 a.m., Claudia goes into surgery. Authorities had made the decision to keep Rebecca's death from Claudia until she had recovered from the surgery. Rebecca's family had arrived to the hospital, and police basically let them be the ones to tell her about Rebecca.
Oh.
Yeah, kind of a cowardly way to go, I think. So the authorities were able to determine that Claudia and Rebecca were probably lovers from what they found at the crime scene.
Mm-hmm.
Claudia claimed to police in her statement that Rebecca had been fully clothed when the attack happened, but investigators found that while Rebecca's pants were on, there were leaves and twigs inside her pants, as if they had been put on her while she was lying on the ground. But there were also sex toys and other effects that helped police kind of come to the conclusion that they were probably more than just friends, as Claudia had claimed.
That does make sense.
So due to the time of night when they found the crime scene, what do you guys think the police do next?
Probably, I'm hoping for the best, is that they try to find the guy. But if it's, what'd you say, 1980s?
1988.
the chances aren't great because you know.
Max, you're new here, so I'll let you know that this is my part of the show where I get my little shtick in here and say
Gotta get
that the
on his
police
soapbox.
completely destroy and corrupt the entire scene.
Is that your vote, Joyous?
My vote is that they question her. They question Claudia. They're like, you weren't friends, were you? And then be homophobic and shit.
Well,
Yeah.
believe it or not, they actually assigned officers to stay the entire night to protect the integrity of the crime scene.
Woo!
How
Yay!
fucking first on this show.
Actual police
I'm
intelligence.
literally out here screaming, crying, throwing up. Amazing, incredible. I'm mind blown.
Oh my God.
You don't, yeah, Max, you're not a part of this regularly. So many times the crime scene is just trampled all over. So,
I can 100% believe that.
yeah, it's probably the first or second thing on my list that pissed me off about bad police work. So the next morning, they're able to clear a path for a vehicle to get in order to remove Rebecca's body and begin their full-blown investigation. At a nearby tree, police find a blue cap that had white animal hair on it with sunglasses, a cigarette lighter, and a knife inside the hat. Underneath the hat, they found 25 live rounds of .22 caliber ammunition, as well as 8 spent casings scattered around the ground. Police found a space beneath some of the bushes that had a clear view of the area where Claudia and Rebecca had been targeted. So with the information they gathered, police officer Danny Beavers took a gentle approach when interviewing Claudia. In 1988, Claudia would not have been very open about her relationship with Rebecca, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And she was not certain if she would have been considered a, quote, sodomite, and if that was illegal in Pennsylvania or not.
Oof, very fair.
Yeah, so this unfortunately was a thing then. I don't know how many states would still uphold that, but I'm going to assume Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
So Officer Beavers didn't challenge Claudia when she was being evasive regarding the exact nature of her relationship with Rebecca. He actually believed finding the shooter was more important than some little white lies regarding the woman's romantic connection. So,
holy shit.
Right? That's another first in this podcast. I think we always assume the worst because it typically is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It wasn't until Claudia received legal advice from a pro-gay rights public defender named Abby Smith that she finally told the police the whole truth about herself and Rebecca. And for the record, it was not illegal to be gay in Pennsylvania at that time.
Oh, thank God.
So police did take precautions on Claudia's part by posting police outside her hospital room until she was removed to another floor after she was stable, because they were afraid that whoever did this was coming after her.
Yeah.
An FBI sketch artist worked with Claudia to get a composite of the shooter. Officer Danny Beavers brought the sketch into the police station, and police were able to match it to a photo in a group of potential suspects they had already been compiling.
Wow.
Yeah, these guys are on their shit.
Okay, Appalachian Trail cops.
Right?
My respect.
So before they had the sketch, a $500 reward had been offered up for any leads that might lead to an arrest. One person called, giving police the name Stephen Roy Carr. When comparing the composite to Carr's photo, he became their lead suspect. Another call came in from a young girl that wanted to report something that happened with a man she called the Mountain Man. A coworker, right? Well, think about the beard I described. That makes sense for a mountain man.
It does, indeed.
A coworker of hers, a man with the last name of Golden, and his family had a creepy friend that would stop by now and then. This friend / coworker had even told the girl that the man had even stopped by their house the day after the shooting. She gives police a description that matches Claudia's sketch. She also said that he always carried a rifle with him and that his name was Steve Carr.
Oh, boy. Thank God.
The police asked the girl a final question, hoping to tie up one big loose end and give them more cause to investigate further. They asked if the Golden had any pets, and the girl said that they had a cat named Snowball. So let's talk about scumbag Stephen Roy Carr. Yeah, I kept him a secret until this point because fuck this guy. I think the two girls and the survival story of Claudia was far more important than this scumbag until now. So,
Of course.
I
Absolutely.
can agree.
so Stephen Roy Carr was born on December 14th, 1959 in Bath, New York. He is the second of 4 kids whose mother was super religious and his father was a workaholic. He claimed his father was physically abusive and that his mother would read the Bible to him when he misbehaved. At a young age, Carr did suffer a series of head injuries, and this is often a precursor for violent behavior. At 11, Carr was sexually abused by a man that would later be prosecuted for that crime. At 12 years old, Carr brought a friend home that he considered, quote, somewhat feminine. Carr claimed that he caught his own mother kissing this friend.
Ooh, shit going on in that family.
Carr's mother does invite this friend to live with them, and then his mother
That doesn't end bad.
no, right? And then his mother separates from his father, and she, the friend, and the other kids live on the second floor of their home. They put a lock on their door to keep Carr and his father from being able to enter the second floor.
This is a very weird situation.
Like, this is fucking nuts.
Yeah, what the fuck?
Yikes.
So Carr's parents eventually divorce. I don't know, as you do, right? And his mother and the friend move out of state.
Huh.
Oh,
This is weird as fuck.
So Carr's
oh my
father,
God.
now Carr's father did make claims that he had caught his wife, Carr's mother, kissing other women and believed that she was gay. How that has anything to do with the male friend, although he was considered quote unquote somewhat feminine, one doesn't lead to the other. But
My guess is he was just trying to he could have been right. I don't know. But if it's the 1980s or sooner than that, later than that, I mean, sorry.
Yeah, this is going to be
Isn't that insulting to say to someone oh, what are you, a girl kisser or a guy kisser?
Yeah, well, anything if you say to a boy, you do this like a girl, it's considered an insult.
Yeah, so I'm thinking that maybe
misogyny.
he could have said it as an insult, or he could have meant it, or both. I don't know.
Or it's his own way of trying to, hold up his own masculinity by saying, well, your mom's the one with something wrong with her, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, the voice.
Sorry, I love doing the Southern accent. So
I love the voices. Essential to help my immersion into these stories.
So obviously his father was also planting the seeds that would kind of lead to this crime. So, I mean, he's obviously building
shitty fathers, unheard of.
Shitty father, sexual abuse by another man, your mother being rumored to be gay. You can kind of see the path. Now, Carr's mother would.
Oh, sorry.
Ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, it almost makes you want to feel bad for him. Almost. Because, I mean, what he did was really shitty, but it's always like that, I don't know, like a tragedy or something. He had a really shitty life, but cool motive, still murder,
Well, I just think people are, I hate to say it this way, but people are sexually abused all the time. And most of them don't go out and kill people.
No.
So
nope.
Do I feel bad for child Stephen Carr? Sure. Do I feel bad for adult Stephen Carr? Fuck this guy.
Right. Yeah. No, that's what I meant.
Right. No, but I hear you. That you just got, I guess, because again, this is your first time joining us. So keep in mind that, a troubled childhood is just, I mean, it's not always the bad mix, because we just talked about the Las Vegas shooter and he had no troubled childhood. So,
I mean, if I may, I also had a troubled childhood, so I can understand where he's coming from. Well, not understand, but see how one wrong move could have set me down a different path.
No, I 100% agree. Same here. I don't even want to think about what I would have done if I didn't have people I cared about enough to not want to put them through that. So
I agree.
So Carr's mother would eventually live near her sister in Pennsylvania inside an abandoned school bus.
Ooh.
With her other children. Can you imagine a school bus? in Pennsylvania.
What the fuck?
This isn't like where it's warm all year round. Yeah. So
Mother of the year right there.
So Carr's mother, the friend, and the other kids, and even Carr himself at this point, moved to Florida together.
Bad sign.
Carr
It's always
begins,
Florida.
right? It's always Florida. Carr begins to commit minor crimes. He ends up stealing some checks. He was trying to cash them, but was unable to. And like the smart individual he is, decides to try to hide them by flushing them down a toilet. So you can see where this is going. He's caught and charged with grand theft.
Yup.
So while he's out on bail awaiting trial, Carr does what's generally known as a chew and screw at a local restaurant, and he's arrested again. Now, for all those who don't know, a chew and screw is where you go in and you eat and then you screw out, not pay. He somehow he can't even pull that off.
Idiot.
This
Right.
guy, just like the signs for the women in the beginning, this should have been a sign for the guy. Maybe I should stop doing crimes.
Right? So he's sentenced to 18 months in a state correctional facility. And you guys are going to love this next part. A couple of days into his sentence, Carr approaches a correctional officer with a complaint against another inmate. Carr offered to blow the guy for $5, but when the guy didn't pay up, he reported him to the CO.
Something's not connecting.
The math ain't mathin', buddy.
So
You don't go to a cop when your John doesn't pay, buddy. That's not smart. He's
So-
bad at crime, man.
he's really bad at crime. So and I just, because you know me, I like to deep dive on certain things. I needed to know how much $5 in 1988 was worth in today's money. So Carr essentially offered to take a shot in the mouth for $12.82.
Oh,
Oh,
Now, I'm not saying there isn't an amount of money that could be offered to me to get me to offer this particular service, but I will say it's not going to be less than $20. That's all I'm going to say.
25 though, you're like, I'm in. I'll do it.
Depends on how hot the dude is. Or how famous. Yeah.
Desperation
Pride
levels
Month,
hit a new low.
honestly.
Good times. Okay. and I do want to say I'm not judging anyone who does that kind of thing for a living or even does it for free because they enjoy it. More power to you. I have to put this little disclaimer in there, but I am saying that there is enough of money. There is a certain amount of money where it is enough to buy enough mouthwash to forget I ever tasted it. That's all I'm saying.
sorry.
Oh man, you don't know what you don't know, my friend.
Exactly.
Oh,
There's a
my
comedian.
God.
There's a. Her name is Kelsey Cook. Made this joke about she was dating a guy who told her that he had had a vasectomy, and she told him that she was going to blow him for science because she needed to know if there was a difference.
Love that. Doing God's
She-
work out here.
She
Less
said it was.
protein, I guess.
She said it tasted. Her analogy was that it was like diet soda. It kind of tasted the same, but something was missing.
Well, if she didn't blow him before and after, that's a horrible scientific method. And I just,
Oh wow.
That's very true. Okay.
sorry, coming in with my degree. That's a terrible experimental setup.
All the
I'll-
science made you so disappointed in her. Oh,
Okay.
Yes,
perfect.
absolutely. She deserves it.
So after Carr reports this ridiculous thing to the correctional officer, he is sent to a unit for homosexual men, and Carr claims that he was repeatedly raped there. And that would happen in prison regardless. After serving 9 months of his sentence, he then returns to Pennsylvania. They let him out. He gets to go home to Pennsylvania. At this point, Carr was living with a friend, and this friend reported that one night while watching the Oprah show that discussed homosexuality, Carr reportedly said that all homosexuals should be shot.
Classic.
Now, Carr,
Now,
go ahead.
sorry. If maybe it's just me thinking this, but he's kind of giving me like internalized homophobia vibes too, like as well as
Very much
external.
so.
Yeah, absolutely. Carr would accidentally set this friend's house on fire when he put
Accidentally.
too much wood on the stove. So he would find himself not being able to stay there anymore. He did spend a short time with his aunt and uncle in that area, but that doesn't last very long before he returns to his mother's place in Florida. There, Carr breaks into houses and practices cutting the phone lines before entering the homes. Yeah, and as we've previously discussed, he's not very good at these things. So he's eventually caught and charged with breaking and entering, grand theft, and even assault after he stabbed a woman that he had woken up while entering her bedroom.
How stupid can this guy be?
He would then serve 3 years in prison, claiming that once again he was raped, blah, 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 right?
I was going to say, I follow a guy on TikTok who used to be in prison, and he talks about his prison experience. And that's typically kind of a little bit what goes on.
Yeah, because you have criminals who have no access to sexual partners, or most of them don't have access to willing sexual partners. What else are they going to do? They're criminals. They don't exactly take no for an answer.
Right. Many of them might already have been sexual offenders themselves.
Correct. Yeah. And certainly, like, the guards aren't going to do much about prisoners getting sexually assaulted by other prisoners. Like, as far as the guards are concerned, they're all in there for a reason. So
right.
So upon being released from Florida prisons the second time, Carr steals his cousin's Jeep.
Oh God!
And is
here we go again with the bad crimes.
And he's promptly arrested again.
There you
this
go.
This fucking idiot. I can't with this dude.
Yeah, he's complete shit. He does try to make a run for New York before his trial, but his own father brings him back to face charges.
LOL. Kill it.
Amazing.
So his trial ends up being postponed. So in 1986, Carr takes that opportunity to hike to Pennsylvania, where he will live as a fugitive. At some point along the way, Carr is able to buy a .22 caliber rifle at a flea market. And
I'm sorry, what?
Shouldn't be able to buy a gun at a fucking flea market, but we live in a country.
Yeah, well, that's just it.
Also a different time.
Not only, no, but you can still do that today.
You can still do that shit.
Can you really?
Yes, it's called a personal sale. There's nothing legally stopping me from selling a gun I own to you. It's a personal sale.
That's weird.
What
I thought that there were more regulations on that.
Well,
gotta love gun laws.
Yeah, that's where we're at, guys. Unfortunately, and that's what happens a lot of times at these gun shows. They're not these gun shows that happen throughout the South and the Midwest. They're not stores. They don't have the same legal parameters. Like, if I own a store, I can't just give you a handgun. You have to wait X number of days. But if I sell it to you at a flea market or a gun show or out of my house, we don't have to do all that paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
What the fuck?
So an interesting thing to note about this rifle is that it was slightly damaged, and it would not eject the spent empty shells after being fired. And it forced the shooter to use something like a knife to get the casing out in order to fire the rifle again. And that explains some of the things found at the crime scene.
Mm-hmm.
Now we go back to the tip the teenage girl gave the police after the shooting. The police would follow up with the Golden family, and they confirmed that Carr had been there and that he did own the blue knit hat and that he resembled the sketch. They were also able to confirm that Carr was upset when he stopped by that night, which was the day after the attack. He claimed his rifle was stolen while he was hiking the mountain. Yeah, convenient, right? Now, the teenage son of the Goldens told police that Carr got emotional and confessed that he had done something bad. Mrs. Golden...
This guy sucks at crimes.
He's so bad. Mrs. Golden tells police that Carr often practiced firing guns in their yard with her husband and son. So the police are able to obtain the empty casings and to match it up against the ones found at the crime scene. Another officer also manages to get some quality petting time in with Snowball, the family cat.
I love that. I love that.
So the hairs obtained from the cat are later put in an evidence bag and compared to the hairs on the knit cap. So we go back to a few days after the shooting. There's a Mennonite woman who's chopping wood, and she sees what looks like a homeless man floating down the river in a tub that is usually used for mixing concrete.
Mm-hmm. Um,
She asks him as he's passing her if she's afraid of the faster moving water. And he replies that he's not because he knows how to swim. And he just sort of
is he on crack?
and he just sort of floats on by. And she believes that, their interaction is done. A little weird, but whatever. And it isn't until he suddenly comes up behind her a few minutes later and he kind of catches her off guard, obviously.
Yeah, terrifying.
Ooh.
So they talk some more, but for whatever reason, this woman doesn't feel threatened by him. Carr offers to do some chores for her and her family in exchange for room and board. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Mennonites. They're kind of like the Amish.
Mm-hmm.
They don't really use cars and electricity, but they don't watch TV or read the news or anything like that. So I'm sure you can kind of see where this is going to go.
Mm-hmm. So he thinks he can hide there.
Correct. And then they're
Smart.
really not going to know what the hell's going on outside
It's his
of their
first
community.
smart crime move.
So the family welcomes Carr into their home. They gave him a place to sleep in their basement, and they even bring him to their services at their fundamentalist church. So the Mennonite community had not yet heard about the shooting and the murder, and Carr told them that his name was Mike Smith.
Classic. Wow, classic.
I know, right? I usually use Bob Jones myself, but
Yeah, for all the crimes you do.
Yeah, all of them,
Are you at least successful?
I haven't been arrested. Well, I can't say I've never been arrested. I have been arrested. But I was 18 at the time. Okay. So Carr stays with them and he helps with many of the laborious jobs. And at one point, the Mennonite family sit there and quote the Bible to him about how men should not have long hair. And they offer to cut his hair for him, but he politely declines. I guess he wants to look like a savage. I don't know. After attending one of the church services, one of the members of the congregation recognizes Carr. Now, this particular Mennonite had looked at a newspaper and recognized him from the composite sketch.
Mm.
So, I'm assuming they can at least see the headlines as they're walking by. They probably don't read it, but,
You can't, your eyes wander, you can't really control all the time what you end up seeing.
Right. Well, here's another quick little story about me being an asshole in my younger years. I met a bunch of Amish people on a bus trip. Like I was traveling on a Greyhound bus from point A to point B, and they got on the bus and I struck up a conversation with one of the guys because I was like, I thought you guys couldn't do this. And he explained, and maybe they were Mennonites. They explained that they could, take rides from motorized vehicles. They just couldn't operate them themselves, was what he told me. So then as I'm sitting there and anyone who knew me when I was younger, I said to the guy, well, have you ever heard Kiss, the rock band Kiss?
Oh, God.
Oh, my God. Classic 90s Janus.
There you go. So I put my headphones on him and I hit play, and it was like they were suddenly 100 degrees. He threw those things off his head so fast. Yeah.
That is the best mental image I have.
Yeah, I scarred some poor Amish kid.
I'm kind of intrigued. I don't think you would remember, but do you happen to remember what song you played for him?
Oh, I know exactly what it was. It was no, no. It was Deuce off Alive 3. And I only remember because I had a cassette tape of it while I was traveling. So
Oh my God. Iconic.
Yeah. So it's like as soon as he heard like the boom of the explosion, that just came right off his head.
Oh,
that is
God.
amazing.
So this person told his pastor about recognizing the guy from the sketch, and the pastor contacts the police and told the police that he was staying with one of the families that were unknowingly harboring this guy because they don't know.
Right.
Shout out to the pastor.
Nice.
Yeah, and the names of this family were the Weavers. Now the police quickly surround their home, but the Weavers tell police that Carr's not there, but he's working not too far away with their son. So the police stake out the house and they set up a roadblock and they intercept one of the Weavers' sons, their oldest son, and he tells authorities that actually Carr is about to be driving out of town with the younger son.
Oh, God.
But he agrees to go and bring the police with him to show him exactly where he is. So the police hide all their vehicles and themselves behind buildings on the property, and it becomes like a scene out of a movie at this point. But Carr has no idea, and he literally just walks right into their ambush, and they're able to arrest him. So he was initially arrested for the fugitive charges from Florida. And this gave police time to build the rest of their case against him for Rebecca's murder and Claudia's attempted murder. And I just want to go on record and say, I think attempted murder is bullshit. Basically, it's murder, but you fucked up and failed. So you still should be charged with murder. Just saying.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I am
no, I
100% back
That's
that.
a very good point. That's a good take.
Yeah. I mean, you're just a shithead and fucked it up. So it's still murder in my book. So Carr can't even keep his story straight.
Oh my God.
The first pile of bullshit being that his rifle was stolen from him on the mountain. He then exclaimed that bad things always happen to him because, of course, his stolen rifle was used in a murder. I mean, come
That he
on,
didn't even know
y'all.
about.
Idiot.
Oh my God.
I can't even imagine trying to push that load of shit on the police.
He's terrible.
So he admits seeing Claudia and Rebecca and even seeing them naked on that Friday after their first exchange. He then claimed he never saw them again after that.
Idiot.
Police then basically decide to fuck with him and ask if he thinks maybe the shooting could have been an accident, trying to get him to dig his hole a little deeper.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of love that for the police.
And Carr takes the bait.
Of course he
Of
does.
course he does. Of course he does.
He claims he was tracking a deer and fired a few shots before he realized he had missed the deer and hit the women only after he heard their screams.
I'm sorry, didn't you mention that this was not hunting season?
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure.
So they hand him a shovel and he's digging.
Oh, yeah, just digging away. He then claimed that he panicked, he ran, and he buried his gun in the woods.
Idiot.
He does
How
then.
old is this guy?
At this point, I think he's in his early 30s.
Oh my God. Okay.
So he then does tell police that he saw the women kissing, and for some unknown reason, he tells police that he also didn't like Mennonites because the women kissed the women and the men kissed the men.
What?
Yeah. Oh.
What an unneeded fact.
I'm gonna explain that too, because this is how fucked up this guy is. For the record, he is referring to what's called a holy kiss. It's typically a kiss on the cheek, and it isn't considered that you are kissing the other person, but that God is kissing them through you. Okay.
Like, and on the cheek? Yeah, I guess that makes sense to like what you do in like a Christian service where you're like, oh, like peace be with you or whatever, and you give the person like a kiss on the cheek. That's very normal.
Yeah, it's not. There's nothing gay or whatever about anything. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, this guy is
Quite
just
chaste.
Yeah, he's looking for reasons. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Digging and digging.
I just also want to take a moment to relish how much he would have been uncomfortable sitting in a church where everyone was kissing everyone else. I just want to say that too. Fuck this guy.
Fuck.
That
Can you
should have been
imagine?
part of his sentence.
Oh, yes.
Well, the problem though is, with most people who, have that kind of outward, they display an outward hatred towards people like that. He's probably inwardly, secretly gay himself. You know what I mean?
That's not always true, but
No, you're right. It's not always true. But at the same time, we're talking about a guy who offered to suck a guy's dick for $5.
Yeah, no, that gives it away.
that's
Yeah.
true. That's basically like, can I please suck your dick?
Right. And so here we are in this situation. So I think in the terms of what Jameson had just said, making that part of his punishment, I think eventually he would come to enjoy that.
But
You know-
he also has to keep a facade.
Yeah, but once you're in prison, like if that's part of your prison sentence, I don't see that lasting too long.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
he starts to enjoy it, and the prison guards are like, all right, time's up. Moving on to something else.
Yeah, exactly. Like we can't keep this going now. So Carr does take the police to where he buried his rifle, and
Oh my God.
and strangely, it is not too far from where Claudia flagged down the help of the two teenage boys.
He was
Yeah.
still following them?
Well,
Or her?
at this point, we don't know. I mean, it does make you wonder if he was following her or if she was following him and not knowing it. Because after shooting two people, you're taking the fastest route out.
Right, that would make sense.
And he knows those mountains pretty well because he's hid there for a little bit.
Correct. And she just kind of figures, well, there's a road down there. I'm going that way.
Yeah.
She may, like, if you think about it, she might, if she had moved faster, she could have easily have stumbled upon him.
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
Obviously, his rifle is a match for the attack. And at that point, Carr is formally charged with murder and attempted murder. However, Carr's story kept changing.
Idiot.
And not necessarily in ways that may actually help him.
Of course, because why not?
In one version of events, Carr claims that he saw the women naked at the first campsite and masturbated there twice.
Sir, why are you admitting this?
Some things you take to your grave. Some things you gotta take to your grave, dude.
I can't. I just can't.
How fucking stupid is this guy?
Well, he then changes the story to add that they knew he was there and were flashing him. And if you're ready for this, urinating and defecating in front of him.
Oh, dear God.
He's exposing his kinks.
What? Yeah, literally, oh, God. This is a deep level of psychoanalysis that I am not capable of, that needs to be done.
In another version, he claimed that, and he initially thought Rebecca was a man until she came out of the outhouse, and he was close enough to her to see that she wasn't a man.
Then you're just a man with poor eyesight then, and I don't know if he had glasses or not, but like I feel like that would have been, besides the obvious, a dead giveaway.
Yeah, you'd think so. I mean, she did have short-ish hair, but no, she didn't look like a man. In yet another version of events, Carr claimed a voice told him to shoot them after seeing one performing oral sex on the other.
That's slightly believable. And I only say this because people are insane. They have been insane people to say that. Or people have tried pleading, insanity.
No, I agreed. And Joyous and I covered the Greyhound bus murder, which you should listen to if you haven't heard it yet.
Yeah, that one was crazy.
Yeah, that guy was clearly hearing voices, but the difference between what that guy was doing and what Carr is doing was that guy didn't stop. He didn't try to hide anything. So he clearly didn't know right from wrong in those moments. Carr knew. He tried to hide the weapon.
Insane.
I feel like if Carr kind of just ran with the I don't know, the insanity bit, maybe he could have gone farther, but he's really shit at crimes.
Yeah, well, he also claims that after they hid behind the tree, the voice kept telling him to keep shooting at them, but at that point he was able to refuse the voice.
No.
So he can pick and choose when to listen to the voice, apparently?
Selective hearing.
Okay. Yeah.
So during, yeah. So
how many more theories we got?
No, that's it. We're moving on.
Oh, come on.
During Carr's trial, his lawyer asked for a plea deal. In exchange for the death penalty being removed as an option, Carr would plead guilty and be given life in prison with no possibility for parole. The prosecutors reached out to Claudia and Rebecca's families for their thoughts, and the deal was accepted with Claudia's approval. The thought process was that there might be a jury that could give him a lesser sentence because maybe someone on the jury was homophobic.
Yeah.
She decided to accept the plea deal instead of risk that.
That makes sense. Although, like, from his perspective, I'm not really understanding. If you're going to be in prison for life without parole, why do you want to be alive?
What's the point of living at that point?
It's funny because I feel the same way, but obviously a lot of people are in prison for life that don't want to die. So I don't know.
Maybe you can write to one of those inmates.
Maybe, but we'll see what happens. I actually debated writing to this scumbag, but then decided no, he doesn't deserve that. So he has been serving his sentence in Albion State Correctional, and the only visitors he has ever had, anybody want to take a guess?
His dad?
No. Nope. No, his dad turned him in. Why would his dad go visit him?
Nope,
to laugh at him?
Dad.
Yeah, to yell at him, maybe? I don't know.
I'm going to go with the victim's family.
Nope.
Claudia?
No, the Weavers.
Mennonites?
The Mennonites.
What?
Yeah. They hope to have a good influence on him and to bring him to God.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess if they thought they could have an impact and rehabilitate someone, that's better than what the prison's going to do.
Yeah,
That's
probably.
An intense Mormon. Aren't Mormons the ones that knock on your doors? Aren't the
Yeah.
Mormons the ones that knock on your doors?
No,
They're one of the guys that knock
Mormons.
on your doors.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mormons and
The
Jehovah's
Jehovah's
Witnesses.
Witness.
Yeah.
That's it. Jehovah's Witness. That's just what they reminded me of.
Mm-hmm.
So in later years and interviews, Carr has returned to his bullshit deer hunting story. But of
Jesus.
course, as always, during his interviews, he continues to fuck up his own stories and can't keep anything straight.
Is he still alive?
Naturally.
He is still alive. That's why I said I debated writing to him, but I really
Oh,
don't.
right.
Yeah, I don't really care for his voice to be heard. He's a piece of shit. Not that they're all not, but some of them have more, like, their point of views are more interesting and we could learn from them.
And besides, this guy probably would have written you to like 12 different letters, being like, actually, no, this is what happened.
Can you ignore paragraph 3 on page 2? So Claudia Brenner went on to be an architect, and she lives in upstate New York with her child and her lesbian family. She would later write a book about her experience called 8 Bullets, One Woman's Story of Surviving Anti-Gay Violence.
Wow.
What a badass.
She's amazing.
Serious badass.
She also went on to be a gay rights activist and is a prominent voice against anti-gay violence. So
Hell yeah.
yeah, and that's where she stands to this day. Like, that's the end of this story.
Wow.
It's really unfortunate that they were so far away that they couldn't save Rebecca.
Yeah. I mean, it's incredible that Claudia survived. That's amazing.
I was really expecting you to be like, and she died during surgery or something.
No, and I didn't want to say anything because this is part murder, part survivor story. And Claudia is a badass. She deserves to be recognized for that. And I'm so glad she went on to be successful. And I'm glad that she's fighting for the rights of, her people. It's amazing.
I looked up photos of her just to see what she looked like, and you can't even tell that she was like shot in the cheek.
Yeah, she looks good.
That is so impressive.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great story in that she became like a champion in that, right? And that she's a badass, but it just sucks that it took this to push her down that path.
Yeah.
So that is the episode. Closing thoughts, guys?
Don't be a scumbag.
If you want to make a life of crime, maybe be good at it.
I think that's the wrong advice to give people.
If you're gonna do crime, just make sure you don't hurt anybody else.
I see. Let's say this: don't commit crimes, guys.
Yeah, let's go with that.
Oh yeah, that too. Maybe that too.
Maybe don't commit violent crimes.
Yes, don't commit violent crimes.
Yeah, there are victimless crimes out there that maybe you can partake in a little bit. But yes, violence, anything that takes away someone's choice or rights, those are things to be avoided. Jameson, any last thoughts from you?
My last thoughts are that the courage and determination in this story is incredible, and what came of the story, even though it had a semi-tragic ending, serves as a reminder, and the story can go forward to other people and say, hey, don't be afraid to be yourself, and no matter what happens, persevere.
Yeah, it's definitely an inspirational story in some ways.
I kind of wish that her story, I don't kind of wish, I really do wish that her story was told more, because I honestly had no idea this existed until you messaged me like, hey, we're doing this podcast, you want to join. I feel like this would be like a huge, just like a great icon, I mean, it sucks. It really is terrible that she went through this, and I feel absolutely horrible for her.
I feel like the sad thing there is that our history, our queer history, is full of stories like this of violent assaults, murders, that it's so hard to even like sit here and remember all of them. Like, you would think that something like this would be iconic and a really unique story, but it's not that unique of a story. Like, our community has suffered so much violence.
You are absolutely right.
Agreed. I actually debated doing the Matthew Shepard story, but this story, I felt, I mean, as tragic as the Matthew Shepard story is, and we may cover it someday, this one to me was both tragic and inspiring, and that's why I wanted to do this one in particular. So,
and I'm sure like a lot of people, whether you're gay, lesbian, or even like trans or questioning, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to feeling like you need to hide yourself.
Absolutely.
And sadly, still in too many parts of this country, there are times you have to, and it's not right, and you shouldn't have to. And that's,
Absolutely.
and I remember years ago there was that, I don't know if they're still doing it, the thing with the safety pin. I was wearing the
Yes, I
safety
remember
pin,
that.
and but a lot of people would say to me like, "What's the safety pin for?" And I'd be like, "Well, you're not the one it's for, obviously."
But I think in this day, especially in the area where we live, you can just wear a pin that has like a little trans or a little gay flag on it, and you can be more out there, which I think can be a more impactful message too, because you don't just show to the people who are part of the community that you're supportive, but you show to everybody that you're not going to tolerate that kind of shit.
Oh, absolutely. And
I
I would gladly take a bloody nose to defend somebody. You know what I mean? Like, or worse. So yeah, I'm with you.
recently I've been like trying to be more kind of open with who I am. Like obviously, personally that I've never been one to kind of fit in the box. Recently, I've been trying to do what Joyous said, is kind of like wear more of my pride stuff, to be like, I'm not scared of you. I'm not scared of this world. I am who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And you should
Amen.
be. And I remember when you and I first met, you were afraid to tell me. I remember
Yes.
because I met you through a work in a retail environment, and I remember being introduced to you via your dead name, and I remember someone finally told me like, no, that's Max. They are afraid to tell you. And I remember turning to you and being like, what are you afraid of? And I had to kind of show you and prove myself to you. So I do remember
It
that.
was it was because like when I came out and said like, okay, I'm Max, my mother said like supported me. A lot of people had supported me, but my father had not, and I'm in no contact with him now, so it doesn't really matter what he says. But because of that negative effect, I was so scared, and I grew up hearing stories of like how dangerous it was to be trans or gay and any of that. So I was really scared, and you was someone I had really cared about, and I wanted to be in your good terms. I wanted to be your friend. So I was like, well, what's going to happen if I tell him this?
Right. And it's too bad that I didn't make it clear enough to the world at that time. And it's hard for me in the sense that because I'm white, straight, and male, I don't think about those things as regularly as you guys do.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to say it, that's the privilege I was born into. But I tried my best to let people know, but especially in a work environment, it's not like I can just constantly bring it up in conversation to remind people. So
Yeah,
I
because then you look like a tryhard.
not only that, but you have to, again, it goes back to in the world we live in, you can't say certain things at work. You could potentially
Mhm.
lose your job if you offend someone, and that offense can go the other way. You have to worry
True.
about offending people who don't want to talk about that kind of thing at work. And I'm,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
You
and I've,
always just have to give them a look in the eye and say, "So, did you catch RuPaul's Drag Race last
but yet, but yet, but yet that could offend someone. And I could, because I've always been in management.
night?"
I've been in
Right, that's
management since
true.
getting out of the military. I have to be, or really anyone in a manager position has to make sure that everyone feels safe and listened to and what have you. So as a part of that, there's a built-in protective layer that actually kind of protects the bigots as much as everyone else. So
Absolutely.
and
Silence is violence.
yeah, and it sucks because there are times that I've literally had to say, you can't do that, and it's like I remember I worked with this older African American woman, and she came into work one day wearing a Black Lives Matter shirt. And I had to pull her aside. I was like, look, I'm 100% on board with you. I support the sentiment and the message. I can't let you wear that in here. Do you know how much that sucked?
I was just gonna say, I can only imagine how much like you and her were deeply upset about this.
Yeah, and
Right.
she was initially very defensive and very aggressive with me, and I remember having to say to her repeatedly, "Do you think I'm that way?" Because she would be like, suddenly, you know how it is. Once you say, like, so it took a little bit for her to kind of like relax a little bit, and she's like, "No, I know you're an ally. no, I know this, and then calm down about it. And then basically I was like, we have two options. You either have to change or cover it up, or we have to call the company's HR department to find out what they want you to do about that.
Mm-hmm.
And in the end, that's what we ended up doing. And they actually changed their policy that certain political messages, social justice messages were allowed. So
That's
something,
awesome.
yeah, so something good came out of it. But let me tell you, it sucks to tell someone that they're doing, especially when they're doing something you agree with, that they can't do it. And
Yeah.
but that was my job. And it's kind of always been my job. Yeah, that was an interesting tangent. But it's true. Like, this is the world we live in, and we need, and I say this almost every episode, we need to be better people. You know,
Absolutely.
even people that believe that, you know, hypothetically, we're all like, anyone who thinks or does this way, does their thing, are going to burn in hell. Great. At the end of it all, let God judge them if such a being exists, right? Let God judge them after. You know, if you're not hurting someone else and you're just living your life, let them be. They're not hurting anybody. And if you're right and there is an angry God about it, that will come later. That's my take on it.
I 100% agree. If you're not doing anything to hurt yourself or hurt others, who the fuck cares what you are doing?
Right.
Live your life, live it your truest self, as long as it doesn't mean hurting yourself or anybody.
Right, exactly.
Just be happy.
It's about consent. It's about maturity. It's, you know, so like if you're two consenting adults and you're not hurting anybody, why does anyone else care? That's the part I don't understand.
Yep.
Some people are very, very controlling, and I think that's what it comes down to. They are so controlling in a nature that they're just like, everyone needs to be a certain way because I am like this, so I need to control everybody. Right. And they're so shocked.
Yeah, it disrupts a world that they think is a certain way, and in reality, the world's not a certain way. That's the problem.
The world doesn't evolve to doesn't belong to anybody.
Well, I remember working with a woman who she was telling me how she had stopped her daughters from watching the TV show Supergirl because Supergirl's sister came out as gay on the show. And I was working with her, and because I love superheroes, and I particularly love Superman and Supergirl. And when she told me that, I was like, why would you not let your girls watch the show? She goes, well, the character is gay. How do I explain that to my children? And I looked at her and I said, yeah. And I looked at her and I said, here's exactly how you explain it. Some girls like girls and some boys like boys. That's all they need to know.
It's literally so simple.
Yeah.
I also think it's very funny when people say, how do I explain this to them? When like you're letting them watch violent TV shows, you're letting them play horror games, you're letting them do all this stuff. But no, God forbid, they see anything gay.
Right. When did it become okay to watch someone's brains hanging out of their head versus someone's bare breast? Or
that's American culture for you.
Yeah, it's this it's the word Puritan. Is that the word?
Weird Puritan values mixed with violent culture.
Yeah, extremely violent. Yeah, as this podcast loves to discuss the violence of it all.
Yeah, so we do be talking about the violence.
I personally learned from it quite a bit. I hate to say it that way. Jameson, do we lose you? Is your mic on?
Oh, I'm here. I just everything that I'm feeling and everything that I'm thinking, you guys are covering. So I'm just kind of sitting here and just kind of taking it all in and kind of just taking a step back and realizing even more so than I already knew about how weird and corrupt and narrow-minded our society is.
Yeah. And that's why
scary.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted Max to join us, because they have a perspective that's different than mine and yours and even Joyous's to a degree.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and that's why I like this. Like, again, it goes back to, I am everybody's enemy. If you think about it, if you break me down to my basics, I'm everybody's enemy, but I'm an ally. So on the surface, I look like the enemy, which is why it's important to have a voice like Max's on this podcast and Joyous's on this podcast, because it's like, actually Joyous and I had a conversation about doing some episodes about racism and prisons and what have you, she brought up a good point. It's hard for us to be the ones to bring that to the public because we're white. So it's harder. So that's why I enjoy having Joyous on the show and Max on the show, because they're going to bring a perspective that I would never have thought of.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah. And so you got to go out there and start your podcast because I want to hear it now.
It's going to be a lot of stupid shit. It's going to be a lot of stupid, but interesting shit sometimes.
All right, guys. Thank you all for joining us this week. Thank you, Max, for joining us.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And we will see you guys next week for another episode of Unsung Murder Ballads. Go check out our socials. We're on Facebook and Instagram under the same name. And you can email us at unsungmurderballads@outlook.com. And we look forward to hearing from you again. So I am Janus Dead.
I'm Jameson Dead.
And I'm Joyous Dead.
And I'm Max.
All right. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.